Welcome to the Radiant Life with Tatiana. I am your host, and I'm obsessed with empowering you to live and create the best life possible. I'm a master mindset coach, breathwork facilitator, and a passionate little Latina who loves sharing the magic behind your subconscious mind and energetics. If you're looking to uplevel your mindset, learn all about spirituality and manifestation, and to be inspired in making a change to embody your best self, you are in the right place. My goal is for you to see and unlock your limitless potential, to have the tools to break free from the chains holding you back so you can create and live your most radiant life. I am so excited to have you here listening today. Now let's dive into today's episode. Hi, and welcome to the Radiant Life podcast. I'm really excited to talk about pressure today and releasing the pressure because let's be real, we're human and we put these pressures and expectation on ourselves. I think about like 90 to 95% of the people I speak to have some type of pressure they're putting on themselves, whether it's conscious or subconsciously. And I'm right there with you. I do the same. I've gotten a lot better at it, which is I want to share with you today. It's actually ironic and funny because I planned to record this podcast episode yesterday. And I shared this on my Instagram stories if you follow me, where I woke up and my body was just, no, not having it. I felt so low energy. It was asking me to slow down and rest. And the old version of me would have just done it anyways, just to get it done. So I had a podcast episode to produce every Tuesday, to be consistent, to do, go, what our society kind of tells us to do, kind of like do it anyway sometimes. But over the last year, and especially more the last few months, I've been learning to listen to my body even more. And I've learned that we're operating in a man's world, right? Like we're operating in a 24-hour cycle where men thrive on that based on their hormone levels. Whereas us women, we have a 28-day cycle. And I'm not on birth control, so I'm very in tune with my body now. And there is a drastic change when I'm in my luteal and menstruation phase, which is like the week before and the week of my period. And then when I'm like ovulating, like energy is different. And so I'm in that phase. And so I've been really learning to attune myself with my body, and I'm listening and not giving into the pressure and the thoughts and the expectations of the monkey mind, the ego. And yesterday I released the pressure of having to do this because I wanted to show up with the right energy and the right message, because doing it just to do it isn't like, nah, like let's do it with intentionality and with good energy. And because I actually just slowed down and rested, by the end of the day, I felt so much better and so much recharged. And it's because I've learned to release the pressure. And so in today's episode, it's just ironic, right? But today's episode, I want to gear this a little bit more to releasing the pressure of timelines. This conversation was actually really inspired by the conversations I had with clients the last week or so around these timelines. And this is something I used to struggle so badly with. I used to put such high expectations on when I needed to do X, Y, Z by a certain age, by a certain time. And I've been able to really release the pressure of these timelines and expectations that I've put on myself. And I want to share with you how I did it and reminding you not to rush, because I know this is something that so many feel the pressure of society with, right? You have to get a degree, you have to get a job, you have to buy a house, you have to have kids, you have to get married all by a certain age and yada, yada, yada. No, absolutely not. And I remember when I met Evan back in college, I would like tell him, I'd be like, so this is my timeline. I'm going to be married by 24. I'm going to have my first kid by 28. And that's just how it's going to be. And he was like, whoa. No, like, I don't want that. I want to, maybe get married maybe at 28 and have kids later, and just telling me like, why rush and why put time restraints on it? But I like could not care what he said. I was so focused on creating what I put in my mind at such a young age. And I was like, okay, cool. Then we're not going to be it. You're not going to be my husband. Or we have different timelines. And I put so much pressure on ourselves. And it's funny because when those times came, I was so not ready. Like, I'm 28 right now. And I'm like, oh, no. I'm so not ready for kids. So not ready for kids. And at 24, I was so not ready for marriage. So I want to go into that because this week I heard my client say, well, I'm 28 and I still don't even know what to do with my career. Like I feel pathetic. And what I heard from that, the deeper root was judgment, and it was paralyzing her from actually taking action to gain clarity on what she wanted to do as a career. Another client I heard, well, I'm still single at 31. I just started Radiant Relationships this week. I'm still single at 31. I just went through a breakup. I'm upset. And, I want to get married and have kids, but I feel like my biological clock is ticking. I feel like I'm not going to find the right person and not going to be able to start a family. And I kind of just want to give up. And I just told all of them to take a deep breath. Because maybe that's you. Maybe you're 40 and you still don't feel like you know what your ideal career is that makes you feel passionate and fulfilled. Maybe you're 35 and you're single and you don't know if you're ever going to find a soulmate or have children. Maybe you're 22 and you feel like you don't have your shit together. But I'm here to remind you, you are exactly where you're meant to be. And age is just a number. And fuck society's standards telling you you have to be somewhere, do something, have something by a certain age. And so hearing them speak of this, it literally brought me back to this imaginary timeline I used to live by, which thank goodness I learned how to release it. I'll share with you how I did that, because now I've been able to live more in the present and just let things flow. And I want you to hear this message today, because I know I'm not the only one that used to put timelines on me or my clients. And I still put timelines because I'm human, but I'm so much better once I become aware of what I'm doing unconsciously. And we don't deserve to live life on a timeline. A timeline, by definition, refers to deadlines or expectations that we place on ourselves or society to accomplish certain goals or milestones. Maybe it's like have the stable career, find the soulmate, get married, have children, retire by a certain age, get a degree, hit your first 10,000 month cash in business, right? Like there's all these milestones, and says who, right? Why do we have to get it done by a specific age, date, or time, right? And while yes, having a sense of direction and purpose in life can be beneficial, but having the pressure to meet a strict timeline is problematic. It causes increase in anxiety and stress and feelings of failure, which is not good for our nervous system or for our bodies. It's creating an unrealistic sense of urgency that like we're constantly behind. So we're rushing and then we're not being present in our lives. We're not enjoying it. We're hitting burnout. We're neglecting self-care. We may be settling with how we desire to live or who we desire to be with. And then it's like, if we don't meet our timelines, our expectations or expectations others have put on us, we feel like a failure. And this can lead to depression and hopelessness and lack of motivation and this negative spiral, or just stopping altogether and settling. And it's sad because I genuinely think social media has made it worse, made this timeline pressure like just like this instant gratification thing. Like I literally see on TikTok now and I'm like, oh my God, this 21-year-old has $1 million business and I'm 28. And I like, you get caught up in the comparison game and then you have to pull yourself out and you're like, hold up. That's their lane. That's their path. That's not mine. Because the thing is, there is no right or wrong timeline, way of living to have these things. We are all on our own paths. So if you've been feeling the pressure you've been putting on yourself, or the pressure by society or your parents to get married, to have children, to hit a certain milestone in your career, I want you to just take a deep breath with me. Inhale through your nose and exhale. I want you to learn to trust that you're exactly where you're meant to be. Exactly. And a few examples I give my clients is that has really helped me shift my perspective is one, Oprah Winfrey, who is like one of the very top successful women, didn't reach like the beginning stages of her success and in her career until she was between her 30 to 35. Right? Sofia Vergara, who's like the Modern Family, the Latina with the accent, she was single with a kid at 21. And it wasn't until she was 37 that she got her big gig in acting, which happened to be Modern Family, which then led her to, movies and other things. 37. Vera Wang shifted her career and became a fashion designer at 40. 40. There are so many more people with successful stories at like 40s and 50s, right? Gary Vee was working in a liquor store, his parents' wine store, in his late 20s. You have time. You may see someone's chapter 10, but you didn't see their chapters 1 through 9. And I want to just remind you that it's never too late to change your career, to get into a relationship, to have children, whatever milestones you want. There is no right or wrong timeline. And yeah, I know some of you may be like, well, Tatiana, women have a biological clock. Okay, cool. Yes and no. I have a belief now where, one, I learned about the age where Europe women have children and it is later and they're able to do it. 2, I have heard many success stories of women having children at 40. Is it the healthiest? I don't know. Is it what you want? I don't know, but maybe it's a part of your path. My stepmom, because I was telling her about this topic, she said that her best friend had her first child at 40 and her second at 42, 43, because she didn't meet her husband until she was like 35, 36. But she was still able to have the family she desired, right? I believe it's possible. I have a belief that if I'm meant to have children, God's going to make it happen. And yeah, there's a lot of infertility. That's a whole other podcast conversation we can go into, and I can bring an expert on. But, I believe if you take care of your body, your nutrition, your mind, your body, and your spirit, then you can have it. So don't feed into the beliefs. It may not be the most primal time where you have the most energy in your life, but you can still do it. And so it's so important, before I go into like how I release the pressure of these timelines, I really want you to remember, like, why is it so important to release this? Because if you don't, it's impacting your mental health and well-being for the negative. It has been shown statistically, studies, that people who are putting the pressure to live by these timelines have increased risk or increased everything in depression, anxiety disorders, stress-related illnesses, autoimmune diseases, because their nervous system is so like in fight or flight. When you release the pressure of your timeline, you can be present in the moment. You can release that. When you release the pressure of the timeline, it also helps you improve your productivity, your creativity, because you're just here in the very moment. You're just focusing on what's at hand. And lastly, when you release the pressure of the timeline, you live a more fulfilling life where you're not constantly worried about meeting these deadlines. You're actually able to enjoy the journey, and you get to just live instead of focusing on where you're not at yet or what's the next thing to come. I have an affirmation on my phone that goes something like, you'll get there when you get there, so just enjoy the journey. And I read it every day. And like I said, it's funny because I wanted to talk about this pressure, and I found myself for a glimpse yesterday putting the pressure on myself to get this podcast done. But I'm so glad I didn't, because yeah, okay, it's not a timeline of like, you have to get this podcast done by 28, Tatiana. But like, no, it was like, get this podcast done by this week so that you can have an episode to do next week, right? Well, there's so many different timelines that we can put on ourselves on daily, weekly, monthly, yearly bases. And I released the pressure, and I was like, okay, cool. If I don't have a podcast episode to share next week, then I fucking don't. And I just released it, and then I felt better. And now I showed up the next day. I thought I was going to do this Sunday, but I had the energy to do it today. And I'm still working through this. I'm human. I have other thought patterns that come up in different areas, but I really have released the pressure of what my life has to look like by a certain age. So how did I do this? How have I been able to release it? I kind of broke it down in just like a few steps that I thought were significant for me. First of all, it takes time and effort and awareness, but it's possible, because without awareness, we can't make change. So right now, I want you to think about, like, what are the pressures I'm putting on myself? Is it to meet this deadline for work, or the pressure to buy a house because you're 30, or is it the pressure to find a soulmate or get married or have children? Do you even want children, right? What is it the pressure is going on? You have to have awareness first. And so my first tip is to actually set realistic goals. And instead of focusing on a deadline to have it done by a certain time or age, just set the goal and make sure it's attainable and that it feels good and that it's for you. Not because your mom wants you to get married or have children, not because your boss wants you to have this promotion. Like, do it for you. Because when you do it for you, it helps you stay connected and motivated and focused, and just focusing on, keep your eyes on the vision, not the timeline. This is what I like to teach with my clients in my programs on manifestation. It's like, you're meant to know the what and the why. So what is your goal? Why do you want it? But you're not meant to know how it's going to come and when it's going to come. That is up to God and the universe. I like to compare it to like going into a restaurant and you order your food. You don't know when it's going to come out or how it's going to be cooked. Same thing here. Just set the goals and the intentions, release the timelines. Second tip is practice more mindfulness. Mindfulness practices are like slowing down, getting grounded. Maybe you put your feet in the ground, you take a walk outside, you do meditation or yoga or breath work to help calm and regulate your nervous system, to be here in the present moment. When you can be in the present moment, that's the best thing you can do, because it's going to help you. These practices are going to help you reduce stress and anxiety, because you can't access the future. Can you? Let me ask you, can you access the future right now? 5 minutes from now? No. You can only access this very present moment. And then in a minute, you're only going to access the next present moment. You can't even access this moment in a minute, right? So how can you practice more mindfulness to just be focused in the present? Third is to start building the relationship and the conversation and dialogue to the part of you. Maybe it's an ego, an inner child part of you that is putting on the pressure and the expectations, and journal it out. Write out what are your thoughts that are going on. Write out, I feel like I have to do this because of this. Okay, well, why? Well, because everybody else is doing this. Okay, but why? And my mom and blah, blah, blah. And then you realize, oh, this is somebody else's pressure or expectation, or oh, this pressure or expectation doesn't serve me. The parts of you that feel frazzled are because they're not feeling seen or heard, or they feel like a failure. But if you just take a moment to be in the present moment, maybe you close your eyes, hand on your heart, and you're like, hey, what's going on? Where's this pressure coming from? And you just acknowledge and hear and see that part of you, you get to quiet it versus ignoring it and having it scream more to get your attention. Fourth tip, reframe your thought that it's failure. I don't believe failure exists. It's not an option. Failure is only feedback. That's it. You just learn from it. So instead of seeing it as a failure or as a negative experience that, your partner broke up with you and you're 30, or you lost your job and you're 35, or that you didn't get the home you wanted, it failed inspection, and you're like, oh my God, I'm 40 and I still don't own a home. Reframe it as a learning opportunity. Failure is a natural part of success and part of the process, but it's not true failure. It's just bumps in the road and feedback and learning lessons, and it helps you grow and improve. I always say we need to have the opportunities to evolve and grow and go through them. So just reframe your view on things. When you can reframe your perspective, you become a master in your life. Fifth tip, embrace the uncertainty. So this is one of the hardest lessons I've had to really learn, and I still am a student in this one. We have to recognize that change and uncertainty are the two things that are constant in life. Life is completely unpredictable. So how can you just embrace the journey, embrace the uncertainty, instead of trying to control it and trying to get attached to it? Because when you're not attached to a specific outcome or a timeline, that's when you get to welcome it in faster, because you're flexible, you're fluid. So how can you, instead of seeing it as a fearful thing or freaking out because you're losing control, how can you say okay, it is what it is, it's meant to happen, and that just really is, because you can't control everything. You're not God. My final tip that has really helped me is practicing gratitude. Gratitude raises your vibration. Gratitude lets you see things in a different light. When you can slow down and you can just find grace and gratitude and reflect on your day and reflect on how far you have come, you get to see things in a new, beautiful, positive light and just appreciate the present moment, appreciate what you have, right? I remember when Evan and I broke up, I was 27 and I was like, wow, I am 27. I am single. I thought I was going to be getting pregnant this year if I had planned if everything went according to my plan. And I am not, and I am single. And so that means I'm going to have to date someone. And that means I'm probably going to not get married until at least probably 29, definitely 30. So that means I'm definitely not going to have children. And you know what I mean? And I was like, okay. And when I realized that, I just accepted it. I didn't allow that to make it mean anything. I didn't allow that to make me go on dates. That was not the reason why Evan and I got back together. That just happened. I think the reason why we were able to get back together is because I learned how to just release the pressure and the uncertainty. And it's funny because we did get back together and I'm probably not going to get married until I'm 30, and cool, who cares? So in conclusion, release the pressure of the timelines and the things that you've put on yourself. I actually had a woman message me yesterday and she's like, if it's only you who's putting the pressure on yourself, then it's only you who can take the pressure off of yourself. No one else can do it for you, right? So take today's lesson and apply it to your life. How can you become aware of the things you're putting pressure on? How can you journal out why and really connect to that part of you that's adding the expectations and the pressure? How can you then move into setting realistic goals and adopting mindfulness to be in the present and be able to embrace the uncertainty and be grateful what you have and reframe your perspective around it, so that then in the long run, you are free of the pressures and expectations and of the stresses that you're putting on yourself. And then you can feel more happy, more present, more productive, and more fulfilled in your life. Because that's what we're all worthy of, right? We're all living life. We're all on our own paths. And so wrapping this up as a reminder, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Exactly where you're meant to be. And maybe where you're at right now isn't where you want to be or doesn't feel good, but it's exactly where you're meant to be and you're here for a reason. Maybe it's to help you grow, to help you learn a lesson, to help expand you, but you're here for a reason. So embrace it and trust in the process. Okay? Well, thank you guys for listening. I really hope this landed for you because I know it landed for my clients. And if it did, take a screenshot, tag me on Instagram at Tatiana_Kuto. And I appreciate you all for listening. And if you desire to go deeper into this, take a look at the show notes for the programs I offer to help coach you through maybe the pressures you're putting on yourself, help teach you how to regulate your nervous system, help you gain clarity. I'm your girl. That's what I'm here for. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you all. Continue to shine your light, and I hope you have the most radiant day.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to share it with me and write an Apple iTunes review so I can keep the good stuff coming your way. If you aren't already following me, you can find me on Instagram at Tatiana_Kuto. Make sure to tag me in any posts that you share. I love and appreciate you so much and cannot wait to connect with you in the next episode. In the meantime, go out and radiate your light into the world.